2 months ago, my mother sold my engagement ring, the one my late fiancé, Leo, spent 2 years designing with a local artisan, just for me. They sold it to fund my sister's 6-month spiritual awakening yoga retreat in Bali. They didn't ask, they didn't tell me until I found the empty velvet box. What they didn't understand was that they hadn't just sold a piece of jewelry. They had sold the last quiet piece of my heart. And in doing so, they gave me the one thing I never had before: a reason to stop being silent. Friday mornings in Portland had a way of holding their breath, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and pine. Soft gray light filtered through the blinds, casting pale stripes across a dresser I hadn't bothered to polish in months. It was the 2nd anniversary of Leo's death, 2 years since the world had folded in on itself as quietly as a closing book. The grief had softened its edges, no longer a raw, open wound, but a constant, dull ache that lived in the silent spaces of my days. It was a ritual by now, a muscle memory of mourning. I reached into the second drawer of my nightstand, my fingers searching for the familiar cool velvet of the ring box. Except it wasn't there. I blinked, my mind slow to process the void. I opened the drawer wider, my hand sweeping through the contents. A few receipts, a half-used candle, a book of matches, no box. I stood and checked the other drawers, a cold, stinging dread beginning to creep up my spine. It wasn't a mistake, I knew it wasn't. I walked downstairs, my feet bare on the cool hardwood floor. My mother, Eleanor, was at the kitchen counter, flipping through a home design magazine, a mug of coffee steaming beside her. "Morning," she said, not looking up. "Mom?" I asked, my voice tight. "Do you know where my ring is?" She turned a page. "What ring, dear?" "The ring," I said, clenching my jaw. "Leo's ring." "Oh, that," she said, finally looking at me with a placid, untroubled expression. "We sold it." The silence that followed was a physical thing, pressing in on me, stealing the air from my lungs. "You what?" "Serafina needed the funds for her Bali retreat," she said, stirring her coffee. "A once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for her spiritual growth. You weren't wearing the ring anyway." My father, Richard, appeared in the doorway, arms folded across his chest. "You haven't touched it in months, Eliza. We figured you were ready to move on." "Move on?" I whispered. "It wasn't just a ring. We chose the diamond together. He had it engraved." Eleanor sighed, a sound of pure maternal exhaustion, the one she always used when my emotions became inconvenient. "Eliza, it's not like you're still getting married. He's gone." "He's dead, not forgotten," I snapped, my voice cracking on the last word. "Serafina is finding herself," my father said, his tone laced with that familiar condescending pity. "That retreat is life-changing for her. She doesn't have assets like that, and you weren't using it." They had sold a piece of my soul for a yoga certification. They had taken the last tangible piece of him I had left and liquidated it for my sister's journey of self-discovery. I turned and walked back upstairs, each step a hammer blow against the floor. In my room, I opened the drawer again. The empty space mocked me. Tucked in the back, I saw something I'd missed before. The deep, navy velvet cloth, embroidered with the white daisies Leo said reminded him of our first road trip. It lay limp and useless, its purpose stolen. I sank to the floor, the cloth in my lap, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't cry. Something colder and harder was taking root in the space where the grief used to be. That night, I broke my self-imposed digital silence and turned on my phone. And the first image that filled the screen was of my sister, Serafina. She was on a glossy wooden yoga deck in Ubud, sunlight haloing her golden hair, a garland of frangipani around her neck. Her arms were lifted in a pose of serene surrender to the universe. The caption read, "Healing is an investment in the soul. So grateful to my incredible family for believing in my journey and helping me manifest this new chapter. A heart emoji, a lotus flower. The comments were a waterfall of adoration. You are an inspiration. This is what true courage looks like. She's literally glowing. I stared at the screen, my hand trembling. She was using the money from Leo's ring to post about her rebirth. I scrolled further. She was tagged in stories by wellness brands, featured in a blog post titled, "From Pain to Power, Serafina's Transformational Journey." There was a paragraph about overcoming generational dysfunction and choosing the hard path of radical self-love. I was not mentioned. Leo was not mentioned. My grief, our love, had been rendered invisible, erased to make room for her brand. The job I never applied for, but could never quit, being the strong, silent one who held the family together, was apparently over. They weren't just letting the house burn now, they were dancing in the flames, and I was the ashes they swept aside. I found her latest post, a drone shot of her spinning in a rice field, arms outstretched. Sometimes you have to leave the noise behind to find your soul. I didn't think. I typed, "Hope the healing was worth it. I'm the one who paid for it." I hit send. 10 minutes later, the comment was gone, deleted. At 10:42 p.m., my phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "Let your sister have her moment, Eliza. Don't start drama. Drama, that's what they called it. Not theft, not betrayal, not a profound violation of my grief. Drama." I didn't reply. I just stared at her smiling, beatific face on the screen. People think grief is loud and messy, but sometimes it's quiet. It's the slow, methodical process of being erased while the world applauds the person holding the eraser. I wasn't trying to start drama. I was just trying not to disappear. By Thursday night, my bedroom had transformed into a command center. The pile of documents on my desk had doubled. Receipts, bank transfers from my joint account with Leo, insurance forms, old emails, each one scanned, labeled, and stored in a digital folder I named simply the ledger. There was no grand plan, just the methodical act of pulling my life back together, piece by verifiable piece, before they could take anything else. Rain tapped against the window, blurring the world outside. My hand hovered over the trackpad of my laptop when a notification popped up. A friend from college. "Hey, have you seen this? This is your sister, right?" She'd sent a link to a podcast, The Radiant Soul. I clicked it, and then I heard her voice, smooth and confident. "Healing begins," Serafina said, "when we decide to release the roles other people force us into." For example, I had to separate myself from the grief in my own family. Some people, they cling to pain like it's a personality. They become professional mourners. Every muscle in my body went rigid. She was talking about me. "I had to walk away," she continued. "It cost me so much, but I chose joy. I gave up everything, even objects tied to past trauma. You can't move forward while you're dragging around symbols of emotional debt. I mean rings, heirlooms. They're just objects soaked in someone else's pain." 50,000 people had listened to this episode. 50,000 people had heard my story, twisted into a weapon and used against me. She had turned Leo's ring, our love, into a metaphor for toxicity. My grief had become her content. I didn't scream. I didn't throw the laptop. I downloaded the audio file. I saved it to the ledger. Then I opened a new document and titled it, "Timeline of Misappropriation and Defamation." The rain outside fell harder, a steady percussive rhythm against the glass. It sounded like a gathering storm. The next evening, my mother found me in my room. She held a small, aged velvet box in her hand. "I was cleaning out the closet," she said softly, avoiding my eyes. "Found these. Your grandmother wanted you to have them. I figured now might be a good time. She opened the box to reveal a pair of delicate pearl drop earrings. It was a calculated move, an offering of peace wrapped in nostalgia. I almost reached for them. I almost said thank you. I almost fell back into the familiar pattern of forgiveness, but then my phone buzzed. It was another link from another friend. A new Instagram story from Serafina. She was sitting cross-legged on a tropical patio, a smoothie in hand, the picture of serene enlightenment. Her voice was syrupy sweet. Forgiveness is so powerful. Even when people lash out from a place of pain, I know I must rise above. I send them only love and light. The wave of humiliation was swift and clarifying. She was using my restraint as proof of her sainthood. The earrings, the ring, my silence, it was all just ammunition for her narrative. My mother left, telling me to get some rest. I waited until the door clicked shut. Downstairs, the house was quiet. But something inside me wasn't quiet anymore. I opened my laptop. I added a screenshot of Serafina's story to the ledger. Then, slowly, I opened my phone's recorder. I'm not doing this to expose them, I said into the dark. I'm doing this so I never forget again who they really are. It wasn't just a betrayal. It was a pattern. And for the first time in my life, I was ready to break it. The next morning, I woke before the sun. I put on a navy blazer I hadn't touched since Leo's memorial, pulled my hair back, and walked out the front door without a word. I drove to a quiet co-working space downtown and took a corner table by the window. The velvet cloth sat on the table beside my laptop, folded carefully around the flash drive that now contained the ledger. With cold clarity, I opened the legal document templates Leo's estate lawyers had once shared with me. I filled in the blanks. Item: 1 4.1 carat diamond engagement ring, custom design. Property held in trust until marriage. Therefore, sole ownership defaulted to surviving party, Eliza Vance, upon the death of Leo Croft. I cross-referenced every claim with dated email threads, appraisal receipts, and a notarized letter from Leo's mother confirming the family's intention for me to keep the ring. I attached the audio file from the podcast and a full transcript. I added an affidavit describing the events of the sale and the subsequent psychological and defamatory harm. At exactly 10:42 a.m., I clicked send. The entire package went to the firm that handled Leo's estate. I addressed it to Samantha Mira, a partner I remembered for her no-nonsense compassion. Then I leaned back. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel vengeful. I just felt still. I closed my laptop, picked up the cup of coffee I had ordered hours ago, and took a sip. It had gone cold, but it was mine. In the weeks that followed, I moved out. I let the lawyers handle the storm. There were cease and desist letters. There were threats of countersuits that evaporated the moment Evelyn Reed presented them with the evidence from the ledger. There was a quiet, out-of-court settlement that was less about money and more about a legally binding admission of wrongdoing. I didn't take their calls. I didn't read their tearful, manipulative emails. I just moved forward. 6 months later, the light in my small studio in a coastal Oregon town was soft and forgiving. The sign above the door read, Vance Metalsmithing, crafted with memory. The space wasn't large, but it was mine. The scent of warming metal and polishing compound filled the air. That first week, a young couple came in, looking for wedding bands with soul. An older woman asked me to set a tiny photograph of her late husband into a silver locket. On a shelf in the back corner, under a soft spotlight, sat a single piece in a glass case. A simple band of hammered silver with a delicate etched daisy on the inside. It wasn't for sale. Beneath it, a small card read, "This piece is a reminder. The most valuable things can't be sold, only reclaimed." One afternoon, a little girl visiting with her parents pressed her nose against the glass. "Who made that one?" she asked. I crouched down beside her. "Someone who used to be silent," I said. She frowned. "Is she better now?" I smiled, a real and gentle smile that reached my eyes. "She's still learning," I said. "But she's not silent anymore." I had lost something that was supposed to last forever. I had lost people who were never meant to leave. But in all that loss, I had finally found something quieter and far more durable: myself. And this time, no one else got to decide my worth.